Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Thank you for joining us for yet another Facebook live sessions with the scholars of South Ilahi. Today, we are continuing on the class Knowing the Path to Allah by Shaykh Ibn Arabi Al-Saih Al-Tijani, taught by Imam Talut Dawood. Imam Talut Dawood is a student of knowledge from the United States who has studied Arabic and the religion for over 10 years. He specializes in Arabic translation and Hanafi fiqh. He currently resides in Mexico, where he has taught and served as the Imam for the last 6 years. Finally, he is a murid and authorized muqaddam of Sheikh Muhammad Al-Mahi Sise. And with that, without further ado, we'd like to invite Imam Talut Dawood to begin his class. Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا من فضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Okay, we are going to, inshallah, bismillah. Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we are going to continue with Bughiyat al-Mustafid of Sidi Al-Arabi ibn Saih. And last week we were going over the nature of the spiritual purification in the Tijani path. As we said at the beginning, this book is a book that has general principles of tasawwuf, but it also deals with principles, chiefly with principles of the tasawwuf of Shaykh Ahmed Tijani radiallahu anhu and his tariqah. So we was basically last week what we were saying is that this tariqah, the spiritual wayfaring of this tariqah and its spiritual purification, is free of the excesses and the difficult exercises that many of the other turuq before it had. And that is a hallmark of Tariqah Muhammadiyah. And so we're going to continue, inshallah, and we're going to get some more explanation on this. So Shaykh Abu Abdullah ibn Abbad said, the path of purification of the soul is not through cutting it off completely from kind treatment and being content with eating weeds and unmilled wheat, and going to extremes in abstinence and asceticism while taking one's attention off the states of the heart, its intentions, objectives, and desires, as well as abandoning inclination towards its praiseworthy and blameworthy states. All of that is extravagance and heresy, and some groups of people had fallen into those errors. They acted upon that in their training and struggle. However, they didn't seek thereby to worship their Lord exclusively, and that caused their intellects to dull and took away the strength of their bodies. And in the end, they didn't obtain any benefit in that matter. And that is because of their ignorance of the Sunnah and what the predecessors of this community were upon. So that is what Ibn Abbad said, and Sidi Al-Arabi ibn Saih is going to continue now. He says, another difference between the two paths is in their fruits. In the first, the illumination comes suddenly without the wayfarer having anticipated it. Meaning the first, meaning the path of that is the original path of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he taught to his companions, and which is the path of Muhammadiyah. And this is different to the second path and how disparate they are. And And we will later speak at length on the spiritual training and purification in this Ahmadian path in such a way that it will cool the eyes, delight the spirits, and illuminate the hearts through the grace of our Lord, the victorious Lord. And by wayfaring upon this praiseworthy road and moderate path, such lights of benefit will flow into the heart of the wayfarer as will cause him to observe beautiful etiquette and be steadfast in fulfilling the rights of the real and of creation in the most correct way. Thus he will become a courteous, refined being through the flow of a flood of Allah's generosity, exalted is He, and from Him alone is His beautiful enabling grace and assistance. What we don't mean by saying that the spiritual education in our path is free of seclusion and struggle is that we don't subject our egos to any of that, and that we don't ascend on the path of wayfaring and traveling through anything that they entail, as may occur to the mind of someone of little understanding, or as the abusive amateur may interpret it, depending on his fantasies. So now he's going to Sidi Arabi bin Saih, after he has explained that this path is not based on just being very hard on the nafs. He's going to bring it back to the middle, because some people may believe that this means that, and actually these are accusations that some people make against the Tijanis, that the Tijanis don't bring their nafs to account at all, or that the Tijanis don't pay any attention towards purification of the nafs. And some people, some ignorant murids who have who are beginning on the path may understand it that way also. So he's going to bring it back to the middle, and so that we understand that no, we don't go to extremes like some of the previous turuq, but we do perform discipline of the nafs, and we do fight our nafs. Why? Because this is the way that Allah has taught us in the Quran, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us. You know, Allah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the intelligent person is the person that disciplines his nafs and works for that which is to come, and the unintelligent person is the person that leaves his nafs to do whatever, and then places improper hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we are to discipline our nafs, but we do it in a way that is in conformity with the Quran and the Sunnah. And so he continues, nay, and we seek refuge in Allah from that. Rather, what we mean is that we do not adhere in our wayfaring to training by way of struggle upon the statutes derived and codified after the 3 generations, as we have already explained. Indeed, adopting all that we have mentioned of seclusion, silence, solitude, and other methods that the purified Sunnah has encouraged are among the elevated characteristics that have been corroborated by our Shaykh, may Allah be pleased with him, in the most emphatic of ways. He resoundingly and assertively encouraged it, and from his encouraging it and exhortation towards its practices is that we found in one of the letters of Jawahir al-Ma'ani, which he, may Allah be pleased with him, wrote to one of the jurists of Zurhun, may Allah fill it with his remembrance, responding to a letter which the latter had written to him. May Allah be pleased with him. And the text of the letter is as follows. As for the difficulty that you have mentioned in subjecting yourself to the command of Allah and your soul's perpetual involvement in that which does not please him, that is a natural law that Allah, exalted as He, has placed in creation. It is enacted upon everyone who is heedless of his ego and leaves it to habitually indulge in its desires. That law is that the road towards upholding the command of Allah is not facilitated for him. Rather, he will only see filth, disobedience, and avoiding the command of Allah from himself. But if he wishes to rectify the crookedness of his soul, then he should preoccupy himself with restraining his soul from its desires, along with perpetual alienation from people, silence, gradually reducing his consumption of food, and increasing his remembrance of Allah exalted is He. And his heart should be present in his remembrance, and he should restrain his heart from getting engaged in habits such as being engaged in the affairs of this world, having hope for a portion of it, and loving it. And he should restrain his heart from engaging in any of its desires, choices, and self-direction, and from getting involved in the affairs of the people. In addition, he should censure the heart for rebelling against the command of Allah exalted is He. Through persevering in these matters, the soul will be purified, and it will exit from its filthy state and into compliance with the command of Allah. If one does not persevere in this, then it will not. This is the established way of Allah, that which has occurred before, and never will you find the way of Allah any change. Al-Fath, Surah Al-Fath, verse 23. And in all of those matters, the Shaykh is a guiding helper, not a creator or an actor. Indeed, creation and action belong to Allah, and guidance is from the Shaykhs. Wassalam, peace. So the Shaykh is saying that, that the condition of not being able to discipline your nafs is a direct result of following its desires. And so the way to remedy that is to be persistent in those things that the Shaykh mentioned. And so he mentioned staying away from people. He mentioned reducing your food. He mentioned increasing your remembrance. All of these things are from the Sunnah, but he didn't mention that one should go to great lengths at these things, or that he should, or that one should be extreme in all of that. And among some of his words, may Allah be pleased with him, on the same subject that I found in his blessed handwriting, is a response to one of the most elect of his companions. May Allah be pleased with him, and I have copied it here. This letter that he's going to write is, or the letter that the Shaykh wrote that we're going to read, is a response to the author of Jawahir al-Ma'ani, who's Sidi Ali Harazim. May Allah be pleased with him. Sidi Ali Harazim, he wrote to him complaining that, he was unable to discipline his nafs. And so he sought permission to enter khalwa, seclusion, for the purpose of disciplining his nafs. And so the Shaykh wrote him back, and he said, as for the obstacles that you have mentioned, which come between you and the actions that you seek to do for the sake of the hereafter, you should know that the reason for that is the inclination towards laziness that has become ingrained in your soul, as well as its plunging into whatever desires it can. For it heard that it will obtain the station of Gnosis of Allah exalted is He without exhaustion. Thus it inclined towards what it desired of laziness. If only it had known that it will not obtain its goal of knowing Allah until it takes seriously the well-known matters of the path and separates itself from every comfort, it would respond to the struggle that is desired of it because it wants to attain its objective. However, when it heard that it will obtain that objective without any exhaustion, it did not comply with the struggle and abandonment of pleasures that was desired of it. And the effect of every obstacle inevitably will manifest. And if someone believes that in his state it is possible for an obstacle that arises in the heart to produce its opposite effect, then he is ignorant of the affair of Allah, mighty and majestic is He. And so, basically, what he's saying here is that these following your desires, following the nafs's desires, and not checking the nafs, not disciplining the nafs, erects obstacles in that prevent you from obtaining your goal. And as long as those obstacles are there, you can't obtain the goal. You can't obtain your objective. And so, and he's saying that this is the practice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His creation. As long as these obstacles are there, you cannot obtain your goal. And from this belief of his, he will only obtain exhaustion and nothing else. The likeness of an obstacle is that of the clouds in the sky, and the likeness of the struggle that lies beyond that obstacle is like the sun. When the sky is free of clouds, the sun, it shines brightly. However, when a cloud appears below the sun, it comes between us and it is not possible for there to be clouds in the sky and for the sun to shine brightly from behind them. Think about this and contemplate it, and you will extract from it great wisdom and science. And whereas the obstacles of inclination towards laziness and plunging into whatever desires it can have arisen in the heart was filled with the forms of created things and inclination towards them. And when that happened, the heart became entrenched in compliance with the demands of its desires and remoteness from the holy presence and all of its requirements. And these things will not be removed from it except by the arrival of the great opening, al-Fath al-Akbar, the great opening or the great illumination, with which will flow the ocean of gnosis of Allah. Otherwise, they will not be removed. So there is no way for your heart to be free from darkness and turbidity as long as those obstacles remain. And the real presence is enclosed by relationships, and it does not come out of the domain of its relationships. Meaning that the real presence has certain means by which it is obtained and it is reached, and it does not come, it is not obtained, and it can't be obtained or reached except by those means. And it does not, there's no exception to that. There's never any exception to that. And you should know that what Allah wants from you, and this is very important, what he's about to what he's about to say right now is one of the most important things that you are going to hear about the spiritual path. And this is one of the passages that convinced me that Shaykh Al-Tijani radiallahu anhu is my Shaykh. And that is that it shows the wisdom of, how to practice tasawwuf, and how to approach your Lord without tiring yourself out and without being lazy. So he says, and you should know that what Allah wants from you at this time is your current situation. So if you are in a situation where you're only able to do your weird walif and halal, just only able to do the obligatory awrad, or you're in a situation where you're able to do those and just maybe 100 salat al-fatihi, or you're able to do just a little bit of Quran, then this is the situation that Allah has willed for you at this time. And this is the situation that Allah has willed for you at this time. So you're being steadfast in worship in this situation in which Allah has placed you at this time is more appropriate and more possible for you than your mind's desire for an objective from which obstacles have cut you off and which you will not obtain despite much effort. So submit the matter to Allah and know that what you are seeking has an appointed time and a measure. When its time comes, you will not have hastened it by your seeking to hasten it. And so this is a very important rule, and that it is that you must give effort. You must give effort. So you must worship Allah, and you must try your best to do as much as you can. But you must also be cognizant of where you are as far as what you are capable of doing, the worship and the acts that you are capable of doing and keeping up. And you do those acts faithfully, and you don't look towards other things because you know that, this is what Allah wants from you at this time. So yes, you do give effort and you force yourself to give effort. However, you should know that, this effort has a limit, and that limit is what Allah has made you capable of at this time. And so if you try to, for example, you try to do 4,000 Salat al-Fatihi a day, and you're unable to do it. You're just unable to do it. Okay, but you are able to do, 1,500 Salat al-Fatihi a day. Then don't even worry about the 4,000 Salat al-Fatihi a day, because what you're able to keep up right now is more beneficial for you than to look towards increasing it and then not being able to keep it up. And so this is a golden rule of tasawwuf. This is just a golden rule in general of approaching Allah, is that you approach him with acts that you are able to do and which he has enabled you to do, and you do not try to approach him with acts that you cannot keep up. And we have so many proofs from the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding this. We have the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, that the most beloved of acts to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were those which were done consistently, even if they were small. We have the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he was asked, what is the most beloved act of Allah? And he said, that which is done consistently, even if it is small. And we have the hadith that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, you must continue to make dua, because Allah will not become bored until you become bored. Meaning that as long, the only thing cutting you off from gaining what you should gain through your dhikr, through your salat, your prayers upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from your dua, is you quitting that dua or that act of obedience. And so this is, recognizing our state, recognizing what Allah wants from us is the most important thing, and then worshiping him from within the confines of what he wants from us at this time, meaning that which you are able to do consistently and that which you are able to do while keeping your focus on Allah. This is what Allah wants from you, and so you do that. And you don't look to increase it, and you don't look to what other people are doing. Oh, he's doing 12,000 Salat al-Fatihi. Why can't I do that? You don't look towards that. You look towards what Allah wants from you right now, and you do it. And that is part of slavehood. So the slave doesn't look beyond what his master assigns for him right now. The slave will never look for what his master assigns for him right now. Rather, the slave, he will look from to what Allah wants from him right now, and he will do it. And if he is able to increase it a little bit sometimes, then he will do that. Well, he will focus on what he is able to do consistently for his Lord. So then the Shaykh, he continues, and he gives Sidi Ali Harazim a small window, and he says, but if you hope to exit out of the state in which you find yourself into illumination and purification of the heart, then go and cut yourself off from everything apart from Allah exalted is He, in a place where you will not see anyone, and obligate yourself to abandon every objective apart from Allah exalted is He, and drown all of your moments in the unique remembrance. The unique remembrance is Allah, 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 Allah. If you do this, you will be amazed at the purity that becomes ingrained in you. However, if your ego will not support you in that, then you should know that what Allah wants from you is what we have mentioned. So leave behind you the evil thoughts that penetrate your heart, which can lead to having bad etiquette with Allah exalted is He, meaning by seeking matters to which there is no connection within you. Nay, the only connection within you is to their opposites. And he wrote down a couplet, that the scholars, when they write down couplets in their letters and stuff like that, is usually not theirs. They are things that they have memorized. So he says, you have cast seeds without any harvest, drowning in the sea, seeking pearls. You have cast seeds without any harvest, drowning in the sea, seeking pearls. And what does he mean? You are taking on more than you can bear, and you are not receiving any benefit. And so he's saying, go back and do what Allah wants from you at this time. And then the Shaykh closes out saying, and what we have written is sufficient if you have understood. And so today is going to be short because I have some personal things to attend to. So I'm going to turn it back over to Sidi Abu Yunus, Abu Sufyan Yunus, and inshallah. Please, if you send questions, we will deal with them next week, inshallah. Okay.
Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, Imam Talut, for the lecture. Alhamdulillah. I'm sure a lot of people, inshallah, will be asking questions for the next one. And we've come to the end. But before we end, could you bless us with a closing dua, Imam?
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. Allah, we ask you for the guidance of those who you have guided, and we ask you to follow that guidance. We ask you to show us the truth as truth, and we ask you to enable us to follow it, and we ask you to show us falsehood as falsehood and enable us to leave it. And we ask you for the fath and the opening and illumination and the ma'rifah of your arifin, and we ask you to be completely and utterly entrenched on the path of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the path of his rightly guided khalifas, and the path of his companions, and the path of the true and righteous sheikhs of the path. وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Thank you so much, Imam. Inshallah, we'll catch up with you again next week for the class.
Okay.
May Allah bless you. Allah ease your affairs.
too,
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Okay, Alhamdulillah, we've come to the end of the class by Imam Talut Dawood. That was based on the book Bughyatul Mustafid by Shaykh Ibn Arabi Al-Saih. And inshallah, we'll continue next week for the class, same time, Saturday here in Singapore at 12 p.m. And you can always look at the playback so just in case you miss the live. And with that, thank you so much. Please continue to support our live lectures. And and pray for us. May Allah bless all of you. With that, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.